All right, today we're going to play detective. We're diving into a diagnostic mystery that kicks off with one of the most annoying problems you can have with a car. We're going to follow the clues, we're going to interrogate the suspects, and we're going to solve the case of the faulty alternator. And it all starts right here, with this one single, stubborn clue on the dashboard, the battery light. It pops on and it just will not go away. This, right here, is where our mystery begins. So our first clue is staring us right in the face. We start the car, the engine's running just fine, but that little warning light is glowing. So the question is this a real problem or is it just a faulty sensor? That's our first line of inquiry. Now, like any good investigation, you start by ruling out the obvious, simple stuff. First up, engine speed. On some older cars, a really slow idle can trigger that light, but revving the engine does absolutely nothing here. Okay, next suspect, the battery itself. Well, the car starts right up, so the battery clearly has plenty of juice. Finally, what about the drive belt? We can literally see it, it's right there, it's tight, and it's spinning the alternator pulley. So all the easy answers are officially off the table. This brings us to the really critical question. Is this just a silly warning light glitch, or is a real crime happening under the hood? Is the alternator actually failing to charge the battery? It's time to get some hard evidence. And here it is, our smoking gun. We get out a voltmeter, check the battery with the engine running, and we should be seeing something around 14 volts. But instead, we get a flat 12, and that confirms it. The battery is not being charged. We are running on borrowed time, just draining the battery until the whole car dies. This isn't a glitch, it's a critical failure. Now it is so tempting to just point the finger straight at the alternator and call it a day. But a good detective checks the entire scene, right? Could the alternator be doing its job, but the connection to the rest of the car is cut? We have to be sure before we start tearing into our prime suspect. So the procedure is pretty straightforward. First, we check the main B+ terminal. That's the big, thick wire that carries the charge from the alternator back to the battery. And yep, that has a solid connection. Then we check the smaller ignition pin. This is the little wire that basically tells the alternator, hey, wake up and get to work. And we're getting a clear signal there too. And the evidence is crystal clear. The wiring has been totally exonerated. The car is sending power, it's sending the go signal correctly. The problem isn't getting to the alternator, the problem is inside it. So our investigation now moves from the car to the workbench. Okay, we've got our suspect on the operating table, but to find out what went wrong, we need to do a bit of an autopsy. And that means we first have to understand how this thing actually works. So let's just quickly look at the core concept here. An old school dynamo, it uses a permanent magnet. You spin it, it makes power. Super simple. But an alternator, it uses an electromagnet, which we call the rotor. And this is the key idea. It kind of weirdly needs a little bit of electricity to create a magnetic field so that it can then generate a whole lot of electricity. So, inside our alternator, there are basically 4 main persons of interest that could be our culprit. You've got the regulator, that's the brains of the whole operation. There's the rotor, our electromagnet, the stator, that's where the raw power is actually generated, and the diode bridge, which basically converts that power into something the battery can use. The thing is, a failure in just one of these can bring the whole system crashing down. One of them is guilty. All right, it's time for the internal autopsy. We are going to interrogate each of these 4 components with our multimeter until one of them cracks and confesses. The process of elimination starts right now. First up, the rotor, the electromagnet. We test its internal winding with an ohm meter to check the resistance. And yep, the reading is right in the correct range, so the wire's not broken. We also check to see if it's shorted out to its metal body. Nothing. It's clean. The rotor is innocent. Okay, next we interrogate the regulator, the brains. And this is where we get our first major break in the case. When we tell the old regulator to turn on, it's only putting out a measly 4.5 volts to the rotor. That is nowhere near enough power. But a brand new regulator, under the exact same tests, it puts out over 11 volts. I mean, it's a night and day difference. We found our culprit. Or have we? And here is the plot twist. We install the new, perfectly good regulator, put the whole thing back together for a quick test, and nothing. The voltage doesn't budge. It is a classic detective story move. We thought we had our guy, but it turns out he had an accomplice. There is a second point of failure in here somewhere. So the investigation reopens, and this time our attention turns to the diode bridge. We set our multimeter to continuity mode, the one that beeps if electricity can flow. We test one of the connections and That loud, clear signal tells us there is a direct short circuit where there absolutely should not be one. We have found our second culprit. So what exactly is a diode anyway? The easiest way to think about it is like a one-way street for electricity. It's built to let current flow out towards the battery, but block it from ever coming back in. When a diode fails and shorts out like this one did, that one-way street turns into a chaotic two-way highway. All the power just loops back on itself uselessly instead of ever getting to the battery. And the multimeter reading gives us the cold, hard proof. On a diode test, a good one shows a reading around 0.6 volts. Our failed diode? It reads 0. A big, fat 0. It's not acting like a one-way street at all. It's just a useless piece of wire now. This is the conclusive evidence we needed. So, we finally have our two guilty parties, a weak regulator and a short-circuited diode bridge. With two shiny new replacement parts in hand, we can finally perform the repair and bring this alternator back from the dead. The repair itself is a bit of careful surgery. The old bridge gets desoldered and pulled out, the stator wires get extended and cleaned up, and then the new diode bridge is carefully soldered back into place, making sure those connections are solid. Then the new regulator goes in and the whole unit gets bolted back together. And now for the moment of truth. The repaired alternator is hooked up for one last test on the bench. We spin it up, and look at that voltage. 14.4 volts. A perfect, healthy, beautiful charging voltage. Our patient has been revived. The case is officially closed. And this is the final, satisfying conclusion. The alternator goes back into the car. We start the engine, and that little light, the clue that started this whole entire investigation, is finally off. The mystery is solved. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Yeah, we found two broken parts, but the evidence really suggests that this whole mess started with one tiny component, a single diode. When it failed, it probably created a cascade of problems that took out the regulator too. A part that costs pennies caused a total system meltdown. It's a great reminder, In any complex system, whether it's your car or a project at work, it's often the smallest, most overlooked component that's secretly the weakest link. Makes you think, doesn't it?